Today we're talking about price. It's Ignite session number 15, price right, and present your CMA, I believe is the topic. And those of you that are in Keller Williams, I just wanted to share something. This is today's login for January 26, 2015, and you'll notice that at 2 o'clock Austin time, which means noon our time, is a webinar. There's a webinar every Monday, and the particular one is called Ignite Your Productivity with KW Technology Session 15. I know I didn't plan it this way, which is today's class showing how to use Keller Williams technology. If you're saying, gee, I wish I could see all of those classes, so you can, if you go to Education and KW Connect and you click on Agents, this is where the mother lode is of all of our online courses and training. And over here, someplace, is Ignite Your Productivity with KW Technology. And if you click on that, you're going to find that there are webinars for most, if not all, of the different Keller Williams, of the Ignite sessions that shows you how to integrate what we're learning here with the technology that you get when you join Keller Williams. The other thing I just wanted to call to your attention for those of you that are also, and then I'll stop talking about people that are in Keller Williams. Today at 2 o'clock is a technology orientation. If you haven't finished your checklist, show up for it, because I would like to finish your checklist. There's another orientation at 1:30 on Wednesday. And what am I doing? At Thursday, at 3 o'clock on Wednesday, there's a productivity coaching. It's like an intake. And so if you haven't been to that one, and I know many of you that are new have not, come to it. You'll be getting an email from me. That's all I can say. All right. Today we're talking about price right. How can you price wrong in this market? I know what you're thinking. And present your CMA. And what I'd like to do is we're going to start on, how about 15-2? Does everybody have a copy of the handout? If there aren't any more here, the front desk person has some. She charges a nominal fee.
How many do we need?
Just that one. There's one up there. Oh. But all right. So anybody have any successes you want to share with us from the last week? No, don't everybody? Here we go.
Yeah, I actually got a listing presentation this coming Friday from we had a buyer who bought on a street, who went around and hung door hangers. I hung a door hanger and she came out, we chatted. This goes back to October. I stayed in touch with her. She called me on Friday. We have a listing presentation this coming Friday.
Congratulations. So you had a buyer, you represented a buyer.
Yes.
And around the property that you closed, you put door hangers. Where did you get those door hangers?
We did them ourselves.
Okay.
Bought the door hangers from a company and then did them ourselves.
Okay.
We used some of KW stuff, but yeah, we went and handed them out, put them on door hangers.
Wow, it's crazy. It seems like crazy, isn't it? So, so what did it cost for the? I was sort of facetious about the crazy part, but how much did it cost per door hanger?
I think they cost about probably about 40 cents, Mike, maybe, if that.
Okay.
Something like that, yeah. I think we handed out, we did 200 that day. We walked around to 200 houses. I mean, this is off Cahalan and Allen.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, nice area.
Yeah.
Does anybody know how to get free door hangers?
No. Home warranty companies.
Home warranty companies, not title companies, aren't allowed to do that anymore. The home warranty companies, Old Republic, Fidelity, will give you free, you put your business cards on them. And we have templates in eEdge, as well as the Michael Lewis Marketing Suite, to make door hangers. Any other successes? So the bottom line is that, and you're paid for talking to people, right? I know I may have mentioned this in a previous session, but the more people you talk to, the more you get paid. And if you only talk to some people, you're only going to get paid some. If you talk to a lot of people, you're going to get paid a lot, right? And you should start by talking to the people you know, because you know them. But then you need probably to talk to people you don't know, because it's possible that you don't know enough people already to make a career just out of talking to them. Is that right? Now, those of you that have had transactions in the past, right, which is what Diana was talking about, the National Association of Realtors says that when they survey buyers and sellers and ask them the question, if you were going to buy or sell again, would you use that agent? Over 70% say yes. The reality is only about 20% do. Why the difference between the over 70% who say they would use the agent again and the 20% who actually use the agent again? Anybody have any theories?
Yes.
What's your theory?
Short memories and lack of communication.
Short memories and lack of communication. The last time they saw the agent was at the title company in the parking lot as the agent was waving to them as they drove away, right? Last contact they had. Isn't that right? Isn't that right? And so if you, at some point, you're going to have to go out and talk to people, right? You're going to have to door hangers, knock on doors. And one of the advantages of getting a listing, and by the way, this is related to what we're going to be talking about, around where you sell a house, is that if you've showed homes in that neighborhood and gone through the negotiation process, you probably know something about that neighborhood, right? More so than many other agents do, and that's going to add value. Anybody else get any appointments last week? No? Only one? No. So we've watched the power up. What we're going to do is we're going to move to 15-4. Get your head in the game. It says in power session number 1, rev up, which doesn't seem like a really long time ago. We talked about mindset and success. Pricing has a large mindset component, both for you and your seller. I wonder what that means. Pricing has a mindset component. Does anybody have an idea what we're talking about when we say that pricing is a mindset component?
Expectations.
Expectations? That's true.
Sometimes sellers think their house is worth a lot more.
Sometimes sellers think their house is worth a lot more.
Sellers always think their house is worth a lot more.
The sellers always. Both for you and your seller, we'll talk a little bit more about this, but everybody wants to think their house is worth more than their neighbors, right? And we would like to get a listing. Isn't that the two? Those are the two things. So we're going to talk about pricing and some pricing strategies. The win for you is to win the seller's agreement on a list price for their property that'll get it sold and generate income. Do we have any, are there listings that expire in this market? Yeah, right, Are there listings that take a long time to sell?
Yep.
Right. Now, the market changes, right? It shifts. That'd be a good name for a book, right? Shift. So the market shifts. I can remember at one time, some of us may remember, I'm looking at Roland, the time when, I can remember one time in Blossom Valley, I did not want to put riders on my listings anymore. I did not want to put a rider on my listings, because I already had a whole bunch of them and they were just sitting there, right? They were not selling, and another for sale sign with my name on it in that neighborhood that was going to sit there, right? I wanted to put one of my competitors' name on the on the listings that weren't selling. So do you understand this? It ebbs and flows. And getting a listing, is it expensive to have a listing? Can be. All right. Not only is there out-of-pocket expenses, but is there a lot of time? Right, how many of you ever heard the phrase, buyers are liars? Anybody ever heard that phrase, right? Sellers are yellers, right? So that's the flip side of it. And when it's not selling, and it's time consuming, and it costs money, and you never get paid. Doesn't that sound like a great scenario? Your customers get what they want is a sale of their home for the most money possible in the least amount of time. That's generally what everybody wants, isn't it? All right, we'll talk a little more about how those interact with each other. The first part of your job in pricing is to get into the heads of the buyers and sellers to understand and emphasize what both are thinking. And there's a quote from Tony DiCello, who's the director of MAPS Coaching. It says, sellers and buyers are typically out of sync with the realities of the market. Is that a true statement? Do people really know what's going on in the real estate market? Not really. What I've noticed is that there's always a lag, right? People that are thinking about buying usually wait until it's not a good time to buy, and then they buy, right? Do you understand what the difference is between a buyer and a seller's market? Right? What's the definition of a seller's market?
Tons of buyers.
Tons of buyers, all right.
No inventory, a lot of buyers.
Right. So another way to put that is people generally do not sell in a seller's market, right? Because that's why it's called a seller's market, because most people aren't selling. So when do most people sell? What do we call the market when the most people are selling? We call that a buyer's market, right? And when do most buyers buy? What do we call the market when the buyers are buying? We call that a seller's market. Right, so buyers are buying in sellers' market, and sellers are selling in buyers' markets. Isn't that really what goes on? Right, and so there are do you think there are sellers that are thinking, well, I'm going to wait. Prices just keep going up. They're never going to stop. Right, I'm going to wait. And what usually happens is it reaches this tipping point. It reaches where all of a sudden there's fewer buyers because the properties have been going up. Interest rates nudge up a bit or so, and then there's the sellers think that they're losing the moment, and there's a rush to put their homes on the market, and then we have a buyer's market again. Right? Isn't that what? Now, in this discussion could be useful in getting people motivated to list their homes now, right? Rather than waiting for it to turn to a buyer's market. In the seller's market, I've already beaten that to death. All right, so we're talking about agreements here, right? Specifically the listing agreement. Our plan of action today is we're going to study the fundamentals of how market works. That sounds exciting. Discover top pricing strategies. Learn to prepare a competitive market analysis. I'm going to log into the multiple listing service and go through some of the tools that are available to all of you that are members. We're going to do some scripts, pricing objections, standards and techniques. It sounds like fun. E-Edge listing consultation pages. So for those of you that have access to this, and you wanted to know how to prepare our listing consultation, what you would do is go to My Marketing and click on Create Marketing Materials. And it says go back. That's what happens. Anyhow, doesn't like when I've been logged in. How many of you have a formal? Have they already talked about the listing presentation yet? Wasn't that right? So I'm not going to go through all this again then. But how many of you have a formal listing presentation?
Like a packet?
A packet, right? That you would use like pretty much every time, right? Or do you freestyle, wing it, chat, take random notes, right? I'm an independent contractor. You can't tell me what to do. All right. Isn't that one of the things that we're going to be doing in February in the coaching program is we're going to have a listing presentation, listing consultation workshop, and a buyer consultation workshop where we're going to practice making them and doing them, all right, including some pricing. So I'm not going to go, since you've seen that, what I want to do is go to making it happen. It says here, the truth, pricing is a competitive skill. Be better at it than other agents consistently and you will win more listings and more sales. How about pricing is more of an art than it is a science? What determines the market value of a property?
Comparative market analysis, other properties, like properties.
What? Location. What else might be, what's the most important factor in determining the market value of a property?
Comps,
Supply and demand,
Supply and demand, elaborate on that.
inventory and buyers.
Buyers, elaborate on that last part.
What somebody's willing to pay.
What somebody's willing to pay. Doesn't that determine the value of a property? What somebody's willing to pay. Right? Does it really matter what comps say if somebody's willing to pay a different price? No. Right? Have you ever had a listing where, well, some of you haven't, have you ever had a listing where the comps showed the price was a certain price, but you couldn't get it? Right? Or you got more? Right? So pricing is not one of the things that I would suggest that you do when you're talking to clients is to discuss pricing from the point of view of a strategy, right? Rather than a fixed concept. Because a lot of time in clients' minds, pricing is a fixed concept. But in most industries, is pricing a strategy, right? Because it depends on what you want to do, right? If you want to sell faster, you price differently than other, right? We modify price as a strategy to reach a goal. What that means is, and if you've already had the class on listing consultation, what is the most important part then in determining the price of a property, not from the buyer's perspective, but from the seller's perspective? What would be the most important factor in determining a pricing strategy? Don't everybody blurt it out at once, just
What they need to make out of it, what they want as a net.
what are their goals, right? Isn't that the most important factor? What are their goals? And so you should have I used to ask people on the phone, so why are you thinking of selling your home at this time? Right? What is your goal?
They're gonna move, it's way different than if don't have to.
All right, if they're testing the market. Now, we always say that there are three factors that sellers are looking for. They want the highest price and the least amount of time with the least amount of inconvenience. Those are oftentimes opposing factors. I remember a listing appointment in Almaden, in the area that I referred to as the slums of Almaden. Did you know that Almaden sort of has, there's a little slum area of Almaden. It was south, north of Redmond, right? But anyhow, it was it was not the best area of Almaden. And I'm looking at this guy's house, and first of all, he has stacks of what he would consider to be treasures, like newspapers and things like that, all it was like walking through a little maze to get through the house. It was a 3-bedroom house, and since the kids had moved out a long time ago, one of the bedrooms he converted into a sauna. And he had bought one of those plastic portable, you can install it in your bedroom kind of sauna kits. And so one bedroom was, now there's a big sauna, right? And had a little door, and you could go in and, and turn the heat on, right? The selling part of this particular property is walking distance to Leland High School. That was the selling, if you were going to say, what is there about this property that's good, that was it. And so I started to explain to him that the potential buyer probably wants the bedroom for kids and not a sauna. And he said, oh, I'm not going to do anything. Right? And he said, I'm not going to pick up anything, I'm not going to clean anything, I'm not going to change anything, I'm not going to remove anything, I'm not going to add anything. You just need to understand, I'm not going to do anything. All right? And I said, do you realize that this is going to have an effect on the price that you're going to get? And he said, I don't care, I'm not going to do anything. Right? So for him, convenience was more important than price. Right? Do you understand? For other people, time is more important than price. And for some people, price is everything. Right? Do you understand how you need to figure this out before you start talking about a pricing strategy? Right? What are their goals? So, yes,
So at that point, do you give up trying to get him to clean the place?
I sold fixer-uppers. I didn't care, right? I didn't care. I used to explain to people there's wholesale and retail, right? Right? You're basically doing a wholesale, right? Other people are retail. I mean, it's true if you clear out all the clutter and you replace the carpets and you painted the walls and you fixed the landscaping and you did all that and you had all the inspections reports, you got rid of all the Section 1 work and you did all that and staged it and you penciled it out, you will probably net more than selling it the way it is, right? But that's a lot of hassle, right? You didn't want to do any of that.
Convenience.
Convenience was more. You understand? You need to. So rather than most real estate agents just say, "Well, we know what your goals are. You want to get the highest price in the shortest time with the least amount of inconvenience, right? So let's go on, right?" Rather than doing that, I would pursue those three and find out which one is really what they're looking for, right? So we lowered the price and it sold. I got paid, right? Right? So it's not our decision, isn't that also true? Right. Pricing, grasping the mindsets of buyers and sellers is important. However, the psychology of market, what buyers and sellers are thinking, is just one dimension. As Schiff points out, pricing is like the show Price is Right. Sellers want to go as high as they think they can without losing a sale. Buyers want to go as low as they can without losing a chance to buy. But hope is not a strategy. I like that phrase. This is a famous Keller Williams phrase. Hope is not a strategy. Pricing is also a process. So we're going to talk about, we're actually going to do a CMA. Doesn't that sound like fun? Right? Why not? I got nothing else to do. So how markets work, local market conditions, pricing criteria, and how to apply them. Market now, supply and demand, two principles, market dynamics. They operate on the law of supply and demand. When supply is high, demand is low, prices fall. When it's the other way around, prices increase. And value is established based upon an agreement between a willing seller and a willing buyer. It's that tug of war. Local market conditions, inventory, days on market, price per square foot, and changes in the local landscape. Now, one of the things, if I were going to say one thing about how to do a CMA properly, present price, and get a listing, I would have to say you need to focus on geographic areas, also known as farming, right? Now, did they talk about farming in the seller leads, right? And just like the agricultural metaphor, in farming you get a plot of land. Isn't that right? You plant seeds, door hangers, things like that. You cultivate, and eventually you harvest. Now, the value of doing that is that if you create a farm, and I have some videos on how to do this, I might get to it when I get into the MLS, but what you want to do is any property that comes on the market, changes status in that area, you want the multiple listing service to send you an email. And as soon as the property comes on the market, you want to go look at it, right? And you want to take notes. For those of you that are techie, there's a program called Evernote, which works on every device imaginable, including cell phones. Every once in a while, I've met one person since I started doing this that had a Windows cell phone. And I have to admit, I don't know if it works on Windows cell phones. Right, so unless you have one of those, but if you have an Apple or an Android phone, it works. And Evernote, what it allows you to do is to take notes. You can add PDFs, you can add photographs, you can add audio, you could add video, you can add all these notes. And so what you want to do is go look at every home when it comes on the market, and you want to take notes. Right? So you understand what typically happens with real estate agents is they're farming an area, and then somebody calls up and says, "I'm interested in selling my house. Can you come over and talk to me?" And you show up, and you haven't seen any of the homes that are on the market in your CMA. right? You ran the MLS, you've done a CMA, but you've been inside none of those homes and actually looked at them. Has the seller likely gone to the open houses in the neighborhood for the last 6 months? Right? They know more than you do. Right? You understand the problem? They know more than you do about pricing in their neighborhood. And you're there trying to fake market knowledge. Right? You understand how bad this is? But if you've seen all of the homes and you could discuss them intelligently and explain what the difference is between that one's remodeled kitchen and this one's remodeled kitchen, right? Because you understand sometimes a remodeled kitchen means a new faucet. Isn't that what it, isn't that what it means, right? I remodeled the kitchen. So we're gonna wander into the MLS and look at how to do that. And what it says here, time block to preview with price in mind. The problem with going on the board tour or the board open house, right? Besides you understand why they say board, right? Does everybody, because it's kind of boring, right? Isn't that how? The problem with that oftentimes is that there's one over here, there's one over here, there's one over here, there's one over there, there's one, right? Do you understand? There's no consistency in terms of the focus, right? What you ought to do is become an expert in a neighborhood, then maybe an area, then maybe a zip code, right? And then work your way out. You're not going to be an expert for Santa Clara County, right? Can we at least give up that hope that we're going to know everything we need to know about Santa Clara County, right? It's not going to happen. So start with an area, preview everything in that area. So open your calendar now and time block property previews for the coming week in mind. How many of you have a geographic area that you would like to focus on? All right. How many of you have set up something to show? Why don't we do this now? All right. I'm going to wander into the MLS, and I'm going to go to the new matrix. And does anybody? What I'm going to do as and it logs me out. Great. Yes, I have a weird login. And now it's going to just stop. All right, let's try it again.
Too fast.
Please log in. Sure. If that makes them happy to know where I am. No, it's just not. There we go. There it is. All right, I was going to use a different browser. All right. Error page. All right.
It did indicate they were having issues.
Yeah, they've been having issues.
They,
Matrix is gone. I mean, I can't even do the whole matrix.
No, you can't.
Supposed to get it for another 4 or 5 days.
You can't really work on it.
I can't, yeah, I didn't even bother with it.
all right. Okay, so because I know this one's working, all right. And I'm not going to save this because it annoys the broker. So what we're going to do is I'm going to click on the new matrix, and yes, I know it's weird, but we're going to, this, by the way, is the hot sheet. I mean, not the hot sheet. This is the dashboard. And you can, by the way, change the market watch to reflect a particular area. Did you know that?
No.
No. So if you wanted to do that right now, if you haven't done anything, by default it's showing you what happened in the last 24 hours in our MLS. Our MLS includes Santa Clara County, San Mateo County, Santa Cruz, Monterey, and San Benito County. Plus there's listings from Fremont and a whole bunch of other places, so they're all dumped into one place. If we were to click on Customize, what we might want to do is say, well, we're interested in those, and we could say Santa Clara County, but we also could put in a zip code, an MLS area, or a city, and notice we could do a map search, right? So it was telling us what's going on in a particular area. I'm going to, as an example, use one of the areas where I used to farm, which is area 12. In fact, I might even say, how about 95123? And if I click on save, what it will do is show me what's going on in that zip code as part of that little snapshot. Right? And but I'm not going to do that because I'm playing with somebody else's, but I don't think he uses it. So what I've now done is I've made it Santa Clara County. And if I click on this and make it 7 days, it shows me what's been happening in Santa Clara County for the last 7 days. This, by the way, would be a good thing to put in your calendar every week. You're going to take a peek at this. Yes?
Is the horizontal barcode code, is that what changed as you put in 7?
Right. Well, yeah, because 24 hours, there's more. So there's 258 new listings in the last week in Santa Clara County, 15 price increases, 33 price drops. Transactions fell through were 20, back on market is 4, contingent 43, pending 228, sold 163. Now, one of the things that just jumps out at me, I don't know, is there anything here that jumps out at you about what we're seeing here?
Sold?
Compared to what?
New listing.
Compared to new listings. There's 258 new listings and 163 sales. Does that look like inventory is picking up? By the way, if I were doing this for a particular farm, let's say I'm all into 95123, and note, I also, there's 17 new listings and 12 solds. So notice the ratio is different in that zip code than there is in Santa Clara County. You could be doing this all day, couldn't you?
That sounds, I would think, and I don't know, I'm just guessing, but that sounds like with 17 new and 12 sold, sounds like it's still indicative of a very short inventory situation.
It probably is. All right. So what we're going to do is I'm going to go through what I would go through if I had somebody who said they wanted to sell their house. Is that all right? But before I do this, let's talk about farming. That's where I was going to go. All right. So what I would do is select all statuses, and we would go here to map-based search. And what I'm going to do, it says jump to address. I'm just going to use up in the top right, jump to address up in the top right, and I'm going to hit search.
Where do you see jump to address?
All right. In the very top right, see where the plus and minus signs are? Right above that, it says jump to address. Right here. Jump to address. That's what that.
What's that mean, jump to address?
It means that it will find the address on the map rather than showing us a map of the United States. All right. So I happen to know, I'm just using the area where I used to farm just because. I don't know, just because.
So because you put in 95123, so when you say jump to address.
I put in Crow Court, which I happen to know is in that territory, if you actually had a street number. So let me how about this? I'll go back to how to create does anybody have an address of a property you'd like a CMA done on?
Sure.
All right, what is now I'm starting with the jump to address. What is the address?
5900 Allen Avenue, San Jose, California.
5900 ALLENAVENUE. What's the zip code?
Ooh, I think it's 95123.
Yeah.
I'm gonna double check that address.
Well, what I'm doing is I'm copying this because we're going to use it later. And I'm just putting it in, and no locations with a specified address. It probably
Hold on.
You said 5900.
95123. I was just seeing if you guys were paying attention. Good to see that you are. I think they bought that.
It's a unique
He said
property.
5900.
5900.
The address, 5900.
Yeah. All right. So Allen Avenue, San Jose 95123. So there it is. Coleman, Santa Teresa. Nice little area. I used to farm over here. So what I would do is I'm going to go to 5900 Allen Avenue, 95123. All right. So
How did you open up that little window down below to put the address there?
this is called Notepad,
Oh, okay. got it.
which is a Windows program which I've pinned to the taskbar so I could open it up by simply clicking on it. I don't like pencils. All right. So this is what I would go through. And I'm sorry if I seem to be jumping around all over the place, but this is what I would go through. The first thing I'd want to know is everything about that property. And so this is the login. This is what you see when you log into the MLS. I start by clicking on Realist, right? And I'm going to log into Realist. And the reason I start in Realist is we're going to go through all the different ways in which we can find the value of a property. Is it okay that we do this and then maybe get back to the outline later? Right? Does this sound like fun? Okay. So property address, and it doesn't always have to be exact. Notice I don't have San Jose and all that. We'll see if it makes me a liar. So yeah, I just put in 5900 Allen 95123 and it found the property. Those of you that are old school, this was called the title company property profile. Right, back in the old days, you'd call the title company up and you'd say, I have a listing appointment, can you give me a property profile? And they'd print out this little booklet and bring it over to you and you'd take it with you, right?
This is done right in
This is the same software that they used. Realist is software the title companies used. So what this does is it shows all this information about the property. It's a 4-bedroom, 2-bath, 2,558 square feet, built in 1985, 11,613 square foot lot, not bad. Last sales price in 1987 was $245,000. Right, the recent one, it takes at least 30 days for the title company records, at least the ones that we have access to update. Okay, now it gives us the owner's name and that sort of thing. One of the reasons that I like to start with this is sometimes I've found that the person that called me and said they would like to talk about selling their house is not the person who's on the record, right? Not the same name, right? Which at least brings out the question, who's Judy Pipkin, right? You know, when we go there, right? So who is this? Why isn't your name there? So location, it gives us school district information, zoning, all sorts of fun stuff, assessment and taxes, last market sale and sales history. All right. By the way, all of this can be created in a report, which we could print out. Oops, and I don't know why that button wanted to launch. It shows us a little map of the property, last sales and market history, and all that sort of stuff, right? By the way, if we click on comparables, there's a danger in using this as your comps because it's generally not very good. We're doing this simply because we want to look at this. Market trends, what that's going to do is gives us some graphs and charts for that zip code. Neighbors, those of you that remember the old property profiles will remember this was all the stuff you used to get that shows the neighborhood. There's a neighborhood profile and it has age and gender and quality of life and schools.
That's all within the
Realist. Schools, businesses in the area, all that sort of stuff. There's an assessor's map, which is you have to click on to open up, which I think they charge you for. All of these things can be printed out. You could save them, you could email them, and what I generally would do is print all this out, right? Because I just wanted to look at it, and I might include it in my CMA. By the way, when I went on a listing appointment, I had a 3-ring binder with tabs and a table of contents. And I brought lots of stuff, right? And it was I don't know, lots of stuff. I always thought it was better to have more stuff than less stuff. So what this is telling us is that what we're dealing with is a 4-bedroom, a 4-2, 2558, 11613, and it was built in 1985. All right, so good to know, right? Good to know. Now, having done that, what I would typically do is, and by the way, sometimes, let me just go back to this, sometimes when you look at property detail, it will give you an estimated value. Does everybody see that? My suggestion, and I'm going to do this, I'm going to open up a new one. Yeah.
The realist is within MLS, correct?
That is correct. You should be curious about all the buttons that are on the screen when you log into the MLS. People ask me, how do I find, where do I go to get, and most of the time there's a button on the screen when they log into the MLS, right? And Realist is right here. How much extra do you pay to access Realist? It's all part of your MLS. So what I was going to do is, my suggestion, I'm going to pull up my notepad again, a different one. No, I don't want that. So it won't let me pull up 2 unless I save the one I have. I hate Windows. All right, so I'm going to use Microsoft Word. How about that? So I'm going to just suggest that for your CMA, number 1 is Realist. Now, Realist is going to give us, notice it says here, estimated value. Does everybody see that? This is under the Property Detail tab. It comes up with an estimated value. A real AVM in a real AVM range and a value as of. And a confidence score and a standard deviation. None of this is particularly zero-end accurate. But does anybody know what an AVM stands for?
Yes.
And that stands for, I know it's on the screen, gotta hide it, gotta hide it. What?
Automated value.
The loan guy would know this.
Automated value module.
It's an automated valuation module. Can anybody think of what is the most famous automated valuation model that's out there? Zillow. Right? Zillow is an automated valuation model. So as we scroll, so we have an automated valuation model of 906104. What is the real AVM is stands for the realtor's valuation, automated valuation model, which we're going to look at that, which uses more MLS data than the standard automated valuation model, but we have a price of 906104 and a range. I would print this out. Right? We're going to talk about the actual strategy in presenting this, but the reason I was pulling this out is one of the things we're going to want to do is say, what does Realist say it is? Now, Realist is not doing a really good comp analysis. It's basically just looking at what's in the neighborhood, right? But this gives us their comparables, market trends, neighbors, neighborhood data, assessor. We ought to look at that. The more you know about the neighborhood, the better. So one thing we do is we look at Realist. All right. Number 2 is we want to look at what the MLS says in that area. So I would click on New Matrix is live, and I'm going to log in, and we're going to go to Search Residential. And I at this point would look at everything. Active, contingent, pending, sold, withdrawn, canceled, expired. I want to know everything. And what I would do is I would start by going down to where it says map search. Now, by the way, I am recording this. So for a nominal fee, I have PayPal. You can get access to the anyhow. It'll be on my YouTube channel later, and you could watch it in case, right? Because it's like, drinking from a fire hose, right? So we're going to click on map search. And you see the problem, this is where we start with. finding Allen could be difficult unless we, I think my pacemaker is going off again. So I'm putting the address in that top right hand and clicking on that, and now it's showing me the property. It's all right. If I freaked out about cell phones going off, you know, that's why I always take 2 Valiums before every class. And I don't care. So this shows us where the property is. By the way, one of the things I would definitely recommend that you do before you show up at the house is get in your car and drive over and take a look at the property from the outside. Drive around the neighborhoods. What are we looking for when we drive around the neighborhoods? Other for sale signs. The MLS might tell us that, but what type of other for sale signs would the MLS not tell us about? For sale by owners. Are you going to tell people you're the area specialist? Yeah. And would the area specialist know what the for sale by owner is listed for? Right. And when the owner says, so that for sale by owner around the corner, do you know what they're asking? And you say, I don't know. It's not in the MLS. I don't know. All right. Is that a good? Not, all right. So what I would typically do, and also what other reasons why would we want to be drive over at the house besides other for sale signs? Condition of the neighborhood.
Traffic, schools, where they are in relationship to schools.
Right.
See that on the map.
Right.
Everything.
Everything. Are there different builders in different areas? And where does the subdivision break? Right? Because what we're going to do now is, so looking at this, there's a couple of things we could do to start with. One of them is we could do what's called a radius search. And a radius search, see this little circle button up here, it says draw radius. And by the way, this is a zoom in and zoom out. So we could click on this radius and go here and we could just do something like that. Huh? Right, now notice it's also telling us as we're moving it, the distance. So right now, this is a 1/2 mile radius, which is actually a pretty good size area. Right? Just to see everything that's in the neighborhood. Does everybody see how I did that? Other options would be, I could do a square. That one, the rectangle isn't as useful, but I also could do a polygon. That's a parrot who escaped, I think. And that allows me to actually do a particular geographic area. But just for fun's sake, I want to see what's happening in that circle. Does everybody see that? Now I'm going to go back to criteria. And what's going to happen now is notice under map search, it says map area selected. By the way, this is the technique you would use to let you know what's going on in your farm area. Right? Either using a radius or a polygon or a rectangle, find your farm area, save that search, and you create an auto email that lets you know anytime something is listed, the status changes, anything that ever happens in that neighborhood. Right? And if you set it up ASAP, the MLS will send you an email, there's a new listing, go look at it. When it sells, it's hard to get in and look at it unless you have, you're a burglar, ninja, or something like that, right? Do you understand? Once it's closed, you're not going to see the inside of it again, right? So you want to go look at it right away. So is everybody, if I lost it, right. Now we know, yes, question.
Circle, but I didn't get the housing will come up.
What do you mean?
In the map, did you have it?
So,
That should auto-populate, right?
well, we haven't done it. We're not done yet. All we've done is selected. Let's go back. Right
I
once.
just got the circle to come up, but there's nothing inside the circle.
That's fine. We're not there yet.
Okay.
So just click on criteria. Have you marked active, contingent, pending, sold, withdrawn, expired, and canceled in the top right or left-hand corner? When you do that, properties start to show up. Right now, it doesn't matter what step we do. I did that first just because I like to see all those little blue things pop up. But we don't need to do that. One step is we want to define the geographic area to begin with. Right? Then the next step is we want to identify the statuses of properties we're interested in. The third step is we want to know the property types. This is a single family home. Right? So we don't care about condos, townhomes, manufactured homes, farms, ranch, and floating homes. All right? We don't care about those. Now, there's 1,283 matches, which is a lot. The easiest way to go backwards is, see where it says change date? Does everybody see that? 0 minus 90. Look what happens. Did everybody see this change to 11? Did everybody see that? I put in 0 minus 90. It changed to 11.
What's that mean?
Last 90 days.
It means the last 90 days.
It's not, because I thought that means that anything that changes last 90 days.
That's right.
Oh, okay.
That's what I'm interested in.
Okay.
Everything that's changed in that area in the last 90 days. Why not? You could put in list date, sale date. I don't really, this catches everything.
This is faster.
This is faster. It's easier. I'm all for fast, easy.
You could do last
Well,
0 minus 30 or 15 or whatever you want, right?
and what would determine whether or not we wanted to go to 0 minus 30, 15, or 180? This number, right? That number. If we only have 2, then we either need to go back a longer period of time or expand our search. All right? Now, I already can tell you that from this 11, it's going to be tight. Right? I can already tell you that because we haven't put in bedrooms, bathrooms, square footage, age, or any of that other good stuff. Right?
And the objective is you're coming up with comparables.
Comps. Right? So, is everybody with me so far? Now, Mr. Sibilia has added things that he cares about here, but one of the things that's not down here that I would add is age. So if we go to add and remove additional fields, age is a choice. And if we click on add, age was not added because, it already has one. Okay. New matrix, thank you very much. So age is someplace here then. Here it is, age. It used to not be there. So I'm learning the new matrix. It's up here under building description. So looking back at our, wherever we were, at Realist, we're looking at a 4-2. Now, I can tell you if I put in 4 and 2, look at the number, it's now turned to 4. Right? So we're how far back do appraisers go? 6 months. They're supposed to look at the last 6 months. But the shorter the better.
Go back farther if they have to.
Right, so that gives us 9 matches in the last 6 months. Right, now I'm going to show you what do you do when you don't have a lot of comps, but does everybody see now we haven't added in square foot or age? I thought it's going off again, yes.
How many comps do you want?
About 10 or so.
Okay.
You generally would like to have 3 actives, 3 pendings, and 3 closed.
And as close as possible to that property.
As close as possible to that property. Is it possible that we may only find 1 comp?
Yes.
Right. I mean, that sometimes, is it possible we're going to find none?
Yes.
Right. And so what I would do when there was none, I used to farm Blossom Valley, 95123 and 95120, the Woodside area of Almaden. Right, so I'm farming Woodside. Woodside is citation homes, right? They all begin with streets that have wood in them. Mart Wood, Royal Wood. One of them was Firewood, which I always thought was a bad name. So I get a call from a guy and he wants to sell his house. And I show up And they're inside the Woodside subdivision. There's this little piece of land where a spec builder had built 4 homes 20 years ago. And none of those homes look like citation homes. They are not the same age as the citation homes. The lots are bigger than the citation homes. And none of these homes have sold since they were built 20 years ago. Right? You understand? No comps. No comps. So what I would recommend that you do is you run the zip code for properties with that square footage roughly. And by the way, just as what I would do is I would add 10% and subtract 10% to get a range. Right? So if the square foot was 2,500, I would multiply that times 1.10 to get a maximum and multiply it by 0.90 to get a minimum, and I would put in that range, right? If the age was 50 years, I would add 5 and subtract 5 to come up with a range, right? And keep doing this until I ended up with homes in Almaden that were that age, roughly that size, that lot, sold for this amount. Right, and if you had and you come up with something, right? Do we determine the price?
No.
No. Who does?
The buyer.
The buyer and the seller. When we say the market, we mean the buyer and the seller, right? They have to agree on a price. So, all right. So so let's just say now I may not have an exact one on this. So what is the age of this property? Let's do that. 1985, so how old is it?
30 years.
30 years, really. So I'm going to put in 25 to 35. And one match shows up. Does everyone see what happened? When I put in age, I ended up with one match. Let's, pardon?
Change your criteria.
Did you change bedrooms to like maybe
First of all, I'm going to look at it. It's an REO, and it's an REO.
It's an REO, yeah.
Yeah, and it's an REO that was on the market for 501 days. So,
Not a good comp.
yeah. So I'm going to go back, and I've still got the map area. And what I'm going to do is 0 minus 90. There's 11. Let's look at these. So here's 5998 Allen Avenue, 1,168,000. Right. I'm now looking for things that are much closer. That one, I would take a peek at it. It's a pending sale. Is that yours?
No, Mike, I went in and I toured that property, the Tuesday we first came back from vacation.
Yeah.
And so it sold quickly. It was vacant when I walked through it.
But you see how that probably have those square footage, 3,000.
Yeah, it's much bigger. All right. So what we're going to do is, just because I don't want to be here till 2 in the afternoon, is I'm going to go through the different, we're going to assume that these are all comps. Now, what you have to do is, in reality, is you're going to need to whittle them down to where there's the most specific, the ones that are the closest match. By the way, what I'm going to do is I'm going to click on this little box to select all of them, but I'm going to remove the active listings, which I know seems counterintuitive at this point, because we're going to do our CMA number 2, right? And CMA number 2 is what I'm just going to refer to as the matrix CMA full, right? So Realist gave us a automated valuation model. We're going to do the matrix full CMA. Now, the way we would do that, can anybody guess what we would do now? I should make sure. Notice there's a button down here that says CMA. Why don't we just, for fun, click on that? Now, you're wondering, now, first of all, it says it wants a contact name. How about this guy? You could describe the contact. Click on pages. Now, there's a whole bunch of pages. There's a cover sheet with or without a photo. If there should, you should go take a picture of the outside of the house. Right? First of all, you should go look at the house. You should take a picture of the outside of the house. Now, if it's sold and there's pictures in the MLS, you could use that picture, but sometimes it doesn't look like that house anymore. So if you haven't done this, shame on you. But if pick on cover sheet, the one without a photo. If you've taken a photo, pick on that one. All right, but we're going to pick on this one. Notice how it adds over. Subject plus adjustments, summary list, price adjustments, charts and comparisons. I'm adding them all. Now, the bottom of this, static and map, is the static and the map is, the static is all this normal stuff that real estate agents have been handing out to sellers for the last 150 years. Right? And there's some of this, if you're using the Keller Williams listing consultation material, I would not do all this. And but if you don't have access to this and you want stuff, I remember brought a binder, and my binder had lots of stuff. Right? Now, there are some people that don't like that. If you're what we call a high D at Keller Williams, right? You understand high Ds, all they want to know is that the arrow up is good and the arrow down is bad, right? But if you have a high C, like an engineer, they want to read this stuff. Isn't that right? They want to see the stuff. So I'm not going to add all the stuff, but I am going to add a map. Is everybody with me? You ought to, by the way, practice this, right? You ought to practice this. One of the things that we're going to be doing in the coaching program is we're going to be practicing doing this so that we can do a listing presentation. We click on the subject property. Now, if the property has ever been in the MLS, if it has ever been in the MLS, and you put in the MLS number, it's going to autofill. Now, I don't know if the property's ever been in the MLS since 1985. Even if it was sold in the MLS, that information is no longer there. Right? It goes back about roughly 10 years. So what we're going to, if it's sold in the last 10 years and you pull up that MLS number and put it in there, it's going to auto-populate the CMA for you. Right? Be careful, because it may not be the same information anymore, right? But we're going to click on type in the subject property fields manually. Why not? And what we're going to do is, I'm going to do this quickly because I'm really lazy. What we're going to do is we're going to just, hopefully this will let me do it. No, it won't. All right. All right, so it's 5900 Allen Avenue. How about that? Street number. Oops, let me do this a little better. 5900. We're going to hit here. Street name is Allen. It's 95123. I wish you'd picked one that had been in the, anyhow. San Jose, California, Blossom Valley. And we're just going to do a little bit of this. It's a 4, 2, Baz. It's a 2, I shouldn't be, and 4. And I'm not going to do everything, but you get the idea. Right now, if this had been in the MLS and we put in the MLS number, we wouldn't have to do any of this stuff. But you could add custom fields. Right? These are, look at all this, all those matrix fields. You could add some other fields and put them in. You could have remarks. What it's going to do if you use the MLS, right, number from a previous MLS listing, it's going to put those remarks in. All uppercase, usually saying things like seller's desperate, bring your hammer, contractor special, bulldozer ready, those sort of, those sort of things. So you might want to just look at that and maybe change it. And if you had a photo, you would upload the photo there. Is there, this is not rocket surgery. Cover. You click on the cover, it's got the contact information for the client. you should make sure that you've edited your information so that your picture is there and that sort of thing, right? So if you've got, does everybody know that in Matrix, there's a section called My Matrix? You ought to be curious about the MLS and click on all the little buttons and look at all the things down below and look at them. But in My Matrix, it has a place for you to, your information, to put your photo, your phone number, all your stuff, your website. And had you done this, by the way, I would imagine that a lot of you, your agent information looks like this one, right? Your picture's not there. Right, this information is what was pulled from your MLS membership, and that's all there is. Right? Would it be better if it has your picture, your website, your cell phone, and all that other kind of stuff? Right. So you're going to do this. You could put in the contact information. This is the person you're doing it for. Now, this was pulled from. By the way, I pulled that contact information when it said contacts. For this to work, you have to put the person in as a contact. I mean, it works better, but you could change it right now. Comparables. So it shows us the different comparables. We're going to pick all of them, and notice it has a button down here. And I have to admit, I haven't done this in the new matrix, so it may be weird. Notice before I removed the active listings. Does everybody remember that? I removed the active listings. And you're probably, he's losing it again. Add from listings. Now, the logic of this is CMA sometimes end up being like looking at a property through like a knothole in a fence, right? So what we usually look at are homes that have sold in that neighborhood, in that area. Remember the radius we pulled out, which is actually kind of a big one. Is that all that's the competition? If I'm a buyer and I'm looking at Allen, where else might I be looking? Would I be open to probably to any house in 95123 that fit that criteria? How about 95124? If I'm willing to take 123, would I take 124? Would I be perhaps looking in Santa Teresa too? How about 95136, the other part of Blossom Valley? Would I be looking at that too? So the competition is actually a much larger group than the comps. Do you understand that? And if, what'll happen is if there's not very many active listings, and we give the seller a CMA that shows no active listings, what message does that give to the seller?
Sell now.
I've got the only one. I got the only house for sale. Right? They're going to have to come crawling to me to buy my house because there's no competition. If there were 10 listings on the market of homes that were bigger, younger, nicer looking, would that have an effect on the seller's attitude perhaps? Right? So but solds in 95136 and 95124 are not good to add into our CMA. Actives, as long as they're competitive, would be. So what I'm going to do, first time using the new matrix, I'm clicking add from listings, and what I'm going to do now is I'm going to click on active listings. And now remember, Realist already told me that they think and that it's worth somewhere in the 900 and 6,000. They have a range here. You see that range? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to look for active listings. I'm going to click on residential. I'm going to look for single family. I'm going to want 4+ for beds. I'm going to want 2+ for baths. I'm going to want, and I'm going to keep going back. Usually I print this out because I'm too lazy to keep looking. It's 2,500 square feet, so I'm going to say I want 2,300 plus. Age, he said it was 30 years old, so I'm going to say 40 minus. And I'm going to put in a list price of and by the way, one of the things that you sort of come up with while you're doing this is an idea. The range from Realist was 987, so why don't we just say 990 or less? And one of the things that it doesn't do is it doesn't show you, and I'm going to clear the map. And I'm going to put in zip codes 95123. I'm going to put in a comma, 95124, comma, 95136. And how about 95119? And we're not getting very much.
We're now 118.
How about this? MLS area 12, comma, 14, and
14's Cambria.
Yeah.
And 2.
yeah, I know. It doesn't hurt and just see. There's 2 matches. Those were the 2 we deleted. So,
Have it on the market.
yeah.
That'd be a tough one, Mike.
Yeah, thank you. So I'm going through the process anyhow, so we're just going to add those 2. Now, but you understand the process that I went through. This one, because I was sabotaged by, but you understand that a lot of times what you're going to find is in Santa Teresa and other parts of Blossom Valley, there are other homes that are on the market that somebody could buy that might be a better deal than this, and we ought to at least look at that, right? Question?
So I'm sorry, so when you're doing your CMA, you're, with your criteria, I get everything that you're doing, so you're doing the pending and sold and all that, but you're not putting the actives in until after?
Right, because I want the actives to be a broader area
Okay,
than the pendings and solds. The pendings and sold need to be tightly confined to that market
Right.
because it's more relevant. But when we're looking at the competition, if you've showed buyers homes, sometimes they say, I only want this little neighborhood around Allen Street. Is that normally what they say, or do they say Blossom Valley, Cambrian, Santa Teresa, somewhere over there?
so when you're sitting with your seller and the seller says, well, I don't care that active is over there, over there, over there, it's way away from me, it has no comparable to my home.
Well, it may, by the question, does it have a comparable to their home? Is it competition?
Oh, of course, yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
If you were marketing, one of the conversations you have to have with people when you're doing a CMA, when we're talking about pricing strategy, whether they like it or not, their home is going to become a commodity, a product on the market. And I used to say this to people, like a box of cereal, right? First of all, do people buy cereal because of the box? Right? Because of what's on the cover. So do we need to make their box look nice? Right? Is that right? That's one of the conversations you have to have with them, because I don't know if they went through, this is what I used to go through with sellers. I say the first thing is, in order for somebody to buy your house, they're going to have to want your area. We can't do anything about that. If they don't want 95123, they don't want the zip code, there's nothing we can do about it. They're not going to look, right? Second, they're going to want this, they're going to need to like the neighborhood, right? If they don't like the neighborhood, if they don't like the schools in the neighborhood, if they don't like the neighborhood, there's nothing we can do about that, right? They're not going to look. Number 3, they have to like the street. Have you ever showed homes to a buyer and you're driving down the street and the buyer says, the house we're going to look at, is it on this street?
Yeah.
Right? And you say, yeah. He said, we don't need to see it. Never mind. We don't need it, right? We can't do anything about that. Isn't that right? We can't do anything about that. So now the street's okay, the neighborhood's okay, the area's okay. They're now parked in front of your house, right? Maybe on the other side of the street, looking at the window at your house. If they don't like what they see, they won't come in. Isn't that right? So the first thing we need to do is walk to the other side of the street, turn and look at your house and ask ourselves, how does it look? If we can't show it, we can't sell it. Right? Right? So spending some time to make the front look nice so that people will go in is the next step. Right? So I digress. So does everybody understand what the idea here, right, is we run the comps, we add the active listings. Now, if you have to click on this to add them, we're just going to add them all. We're going to go click on the next one, map, shows the map of where they are. Look at that one, that's one of the adjustments. This is a dangerous thing to do anything with. Right? It's a dangerous. By the way, what I used to do is remove the ones that were, and if we go back here, let me go back here to the comparables. One of the things that I used to do, now the one on Allen may be hard, but some of these that are down here, look at these. If they just are ridiculously not close to the value, I would get rid of them. If something was way too high, I'd get rid of it. Right? So why don't we do that, and then we're going to click on the map. All right, so it's going to give us a little bit of, what's this one doing? All right. And if you click on adjustments, this is a dangerous thing to modify because you're not an appraiser, and making adjustments is a little bit difficult. And when we click on pricing, and we're going to come to this range that comes up and a suggested price, which you can edit and type in any notes that you want. And then when you click on finish, it's going to allow you to view the CMA, email the CMA, and once you view it, it comes into as a PDF and you can print it out. Let me say this about, and then we're going to do you guys need a break, or I just kind of just finish all those? Finish, okay. All right. I just want to make sure people have that. I'm used to people watching me with a pained look, so I don't necessarily know what that means. All right. So let me just talk a little bit about strategy, all right, about doing the CMA, because the reason that this is coming up now is you'll notice that this particular report has a suggested price. My belief is that you do not want to say a price. This is my belief, right? You do not want to say a price. So when they call you and say, we're thinking about selling our house, you should have a list of questions that they go over in the class of a seller lead sheet, questions that you should ask. Did they? One of the questions I always would ask is, have you been paying attention to what's been happening in the market in your area? Great. Right? Do you have an idea of what your home is likely to sell for? Now, sometimes people will say $950. Right? They'll just say it. Right? Now, I've had several of them tell me that when I came with my CMA that they were amazed how it matched what they said perfectly. Right? They said, well, that's amazing. Your CMA says $950. Isn't that amazing? All right.
Reverse engineering.
Reverse engineering. Did you understand by the CMA's auto calculation is all done by price per square foot, and if I delete ones with lower price per square foot, it raises the number. If I delete ones with higher ones, it lowers the number. Right? This is just a theory, right? And I have to admit that this theory may not be reflected in the materials that you've been given, but I'm just telling you what my theory was. Right? I'll start with the abstract of my theory of doing a CMA. Right? I think it's better to have a listing than not have a listing. Right? This is my theory. Right? Even if the listing is overpriced, my theory is it's better to have it than to not have it. If we have a listing that's overpriced, something good could happen. One is, it might sell. Right? It just might sell anyhow. Two, I might find buyers that don't buy that house but buy something else. Three, I might find other sellers in the neighborhood that want to sell their home. It might sell. I also have open houses that I can do, right? I don't have to call and beg, right? Because I actually have my own listing. Does everybody understand that there are some good things that could result if you have a listing? What's the positive about not having a listing?
You can't. The positive about
The positive. So you don't have a listing. What's on the good side of that ledger?
not much.
You have more free time,
Oh,
right?
in terms of making money?
You have more free time. You have more free time, right? Now this, by the way, my attitude would change depending on the market. But in this particular market, I wouldn't get into a debate with the seller about the price. I had a listing in Sunnyvale, and they wanted to list it. And I know I'm recording. I shouldn't be, but it was probably $80,000 overpriced. And I told them, you realize it's about, your home is way overpriced. The market was going up. And they said, well, we don't care. If we don't get this price, we don't want to sell it. And I said, well, you understand, we need more time. Right? So I listed it for 1 year. Every new agent in that office got to do an open house on this listing. Right? You understand? Everybody got to do an open house, right? And what happened was the market kept going up. They lowered their price. Eventually it sold. I made $18,000, right? I made $18,000. Now, if I had said to them, you list it at my price or I'll walk, guess what would have happened? They would have said, fine, we'll find somebody else, right? And I wouldn't have been paid. Does everybody understand that? And there's a certain point when the market is different where I also was in the business in the early 1990s when I would tell people, I do not want another expired listing in this neighborhood. I just don't want another one. I'll wait until it expires and then we'll talk afterwards. Right? Does everybody understand that it depends on the market? So if you tell them, I had a first listing appointment in Almaden. It was on Firewood, right? That was the name of the street. And the house was in a cul-de-sac, and they had added a family room. It was a 4-bedroom with an addition, and it was a corner cul-de-sac lot. It was a big lot. And at that time, I'm old, right? But at that time, the 5-bedroom models were selling for $390. That was the most, right? It was the most that they'd got. I know. I'm old, right? So they are asking me, they said, well, what do you think our home is worth? And I said, well, you have the same square footage as the 5-bedroom models, but you only have 4 bedrooms and yours isn't all original. Maybe, 380, 390, something like that. And then I said, is that the price range you were thinking of? And they said, oh no. We were thinking of like 410. Now, do you understand, at this point, there's very little I can do to recover. It's like you say to somebody, gee, your kids are kind of stupid, aren't they? Right? And then they say, well, what do you mean? And you say, well, I don't mean stupid as in stupid, but right? Do you understand, at this point, you've said it, right? And now I've set a price. Now, and I tell them, look, there's 2 decisions you have to make. Right? One decision is the price. That's your decision. Right? You understand? I don't set the price. No agent sets the price. You and the buyer set the price. You pick the price. Whatever price you pick is good with me. I'll go to the moon with you on the price. I don't really care. The second decision is who's going to represent you in selling your house. That ought to be done based on the marketing plan of the agent. Right? Don't pick the agent based on price. But I've already told them I don't think their home is worth as much as they want. So they listed it with another agent. And I'm thinking, well, I'll get it when it expires. Sold for $420 in like a week. Sold for, the market had changed. It was picking up. Right? Do you understand how, you know that, you don't want too many stories like that, do you? Do you know old real estate agents are like fishermen. Right? We're always standing around talking about the ones that got away. Right? It was a beaut. You should have seen him. I almost landed him. Right? Do you understand? I lost it because I said the number first, and it wasn't their number. So my suggestion is on the phone, ask them what do they think their home is worth. Sometimes they'll say, we're not going to tell you. You have to tell us. That's why we're calling you. Right? When I show up, I say to them, you've been paying it, what do you think your home is likely to sell for? I ask them that question at the beginning. They oftentimes will say, well, we're not going to tell you. You have to tell us. And then at the end, rather than just giving them, I would take out the pages that actually had a price on it, right? But keeping the pages that had comparables, I would shove in front of them 3 or 4 listings of sold homes or pending sales that were close comps of theirs, different prices. And I would ask them, which one of these do you think is closest to your house? And everyone by then would pick one, right? I now know that's what they think their price is. Right? Do you understand my theory? The idea that we're going to run a computer program and know what a buyer is going to pay is just not gonna happen, right? We have to put out a good front. We need to show what we know, but do you understand if they wanted to go a little bit high, I would go, I'd go a little bit high. Huh? Is there anything?
If you don't have the listing, if you don't hit the listing, you're out of the picture.
Right, yes.
So it's going a little bit high, even though you might disagree and think, oh God, like you said, it's gonna be sitting here for a while. But with the understanding that you've had the conversation with them, that they understand the market, so if a price adjustment has to be made, they're understanding, okay, I may have to do a price adjustment, but at the same time, you do have the listing, you do have that opportunity to, you know, to get somebody in there.
Remember how many price decreases were there, right? There was a bunch. Sometimes I would have an automatic price reduction depending upon, in 1 month, we'll
Right.
reduce the price, right? Meet with them. Now, once it's been on the market and it's been shown to buyers and you've talked to other agents and you have feedback, right? You understand what this is just my theory. I'd rather have an overpriced listing than not have a listing, especially in this market. I would rather have an overpriced listing than not have a listing. And I had listings that didn't sell, but I did business because of it. I found other buyers and other sellers, right? This is not, by the way, what it says in your outline. Right? But we're not in that market. Do you understand? In 1994, I would say I'm dealing with homes that were all standard models, right? I would say, no way, I'm not going to list your house for that. Go find somebody else, right? But, all right, is everybody with me on that? Do you understand the idea? So we've done, how many of these have we done? We've done 2. The third one, what we're going to do is we're going to go to search, residential. Isn't this fun? I'm going to click on all of these. I'm going to do zip code 95123. I'm going to go over here and say 0 minus 90. And sometimes people ask me, would you do all of these? And the answer is, yeah, I did all of them. And what we're doing is now we're going to do single family homes. Notice there's 163, which I know you're thinking he's lost his mind. 0 minus 90, 163, everything. I'm going to click on results. And I'm going to click on all. And I'm going to go down here to what's called quick CMA. That's number 3. The quick, Q-U-I-C-K, CMA. Now, what the quick CMA is going to do, once it gets through 163 is a lot, it's going to tell us what's going on in that zip code for the last 90 days. And I may have given it more than it wants. So it's page 1 of 86. Now, whether or not we need to do it all is up to you. I might make it 0 minus, let me do this to make it a little less insane. By the way, if you click on criteria, it'll take you back, let's say 0 minus 30. Right, just so it's not quite so crazy. 71, click on results, click on all, click on quick CMA. Should take a little bit longer. Whether or not you want to, I would print all of these out. Now what this is going to do is it's going to show me everything that has happened in 95123 in the last 30 days with the addresses. One of the things that I've found is that people will say, well, I heard that our neighbor sold their property for X amount, right? And I didn't know if that was true or not. Right, so if I have everything that's happened in that zip code in the last 30 days, I could look it up, right? By the way, one of the other reasons for doing this is I had a listing 95136, a listing appointment. So I'm driving there to meet the owner. It's a probate, and the owner of the property now, who's the executor, it's a future owner. The guy died. There's a future owner. The executor is going to meet me there at the property. It's a 1-story, 3-bedroom house. And I had run, this is in the Arcadia area, Park Arcadia. I'd run all the different comps for the 1-story, 3 bedrooms. There was a bunch of them, and I drive up to the house, and right next door is a 4-bedroom, 2-story house with a for sale sign in front. Not in my CMA, right? You understand? Because I'm only doing 1 story. Now, I realize that the first question this out-of-town executor is going to ask me is, how much is that house? There are no flyers in the box, no flyers in the box. This is before mobile apps. Guess the listing agent was not answering his phone. Right? And I finally got a hold of the office, and I got somebody to tell me what the house was listed for. First question the guy asked me is, how much is that one? And I said, oh, that one, right, because I'm the area specialist, right? So do you understand why running everything that's happened in that zip code for the last 30 days is not a bad place to begin? What it's going to tell us as we scroll down is that there are 17 listings. Average days on market is 32. Square feet is 1429 with $479.99 per square foot. That's just the average in 95123. Could that number be useful in knowing what the competition is asking per square foot? Contingent, pendings, and actual solds. So there were 37 days on the market, 33 solds in the last 3 days, 1805, $425 a square foot. So one of the things that I might just do, notice the price was $727, is I would take this square feet, 2558, and multiply it by that number just to see what comes up. So now we're doing sort of a more macro view. What's happening in that zip code? Right? And withdrawn and expireds and canceleds, not very many, right? Does that, can everybody explain the difference between an expired, a withdrawn, and a canceled?
Expired is that they lost, the listing time was up.
Right.
Withdrawn is they just took it off of the MLS for, my understanding, for a while, if they need to do something in the home. Or for whatever reason, in the event something may have happened with the family, they want to not put it back on the market for a while. Canceled could be that they just no longer want to sell.
Right. At that price.
Yeah.
At the price that they're getting offers for. So expired means the patient died, and canceled means we removed life support. Isn't that what it means?
Yeah.
Expired means they expired, they died. They died.
And so then withdrawn would be like what, plastic surgery?
They went home for the weekend from the hospital, right? So, so they're doing something, right? So there are not a lot of expireds and canceleds.
What's something that jumps out when you look at those, you look at the price per square foot.
It's higher. By the way, in a more competitive market, I used to say to people, and they would say, well, why don't we start high? We can always come down later. I'd say, wow, I've never heard that strategy before. That's a great strategy. Actually, you know, I by the way, feel, felt, found. I understand how you feel, right? Most people in your situation, you want to get the most that you can, and you'd like to start high so that you could get the most that you can, right? Many people have felt the same way as you, you know, and we actually have a list of them. Right, we call them expired listings. A list of people that felt the same way as you. So would this be a useful thing for us to print out and look at?
Yep.
Right, because it shows the expireds where they are asking price per square foot. So we've done a quick CMA. Number 4 is RPR. So we're back here to matrix. I'm not going to save all this because it just annoys, it doesn't really annoy him. But so we're going to go back to the pro. It wants me to sign in. No, I don't want to do that. I do not want to sign back in. So Okay. All right. So we're going to sign back in. Just because it wants me to. Okay.
So the ones you just did, are they in there somewhere? Like you had to sign back in?
Well, I didn't save them because I'm using the broker's. The reason I'm using his is is that I know his is completely set up. But if I'd saved them, which I didn't do,
So they're no longer there?
I didn't save them, right? Because I didn't. I'm not going to go on a real listing appointment.
This is an exercise.
This is just an exercise, a painful exercise, but an exercise.
Right, but I mean in general.
In general, you
This
could
with
save
this.
them.
Because I've been in the middle of doing something and then it wants me to sign back in.
Yes, well, what you want to do is save the search and I would save the search right off.
Okay.
Right, and you can save, and by the way, the quick CMA, the only way for you to save that is to print it or download it to your computer as a PDF. Right, there's no way to save it, but you can save the search quickly. That's what you would do, save the search.
You don't save the report, you save the.
You can download the PDF to your printer. I don't believe that they save them. They don't save quick CMAs. I don't think that they save the other CMAs.
Okay, so those aren't saved, but what's you can save is the search criteria.
You save the search criteria, because that way if you need to run it, plus you might not get the listing because they're not ready to sell right then, and they'll say come back in a month, and then you don't have to, especially that 0 minus
Right.
means that you'll get anything new that's happened, right? If you put in list dates, then it won't show you the future, but if it's 0 minus 90, it'll give you the last 90 days if you run it again. Sometimes, by the way, people will say, well, 6 months from now, you can, if you save the search criteria, create an auto email that will send them information about what's happening in the market. When new listings come on, they'll get an email, and you could have it go out every week or as soon as it comes in or every day or that sort of thing. By the way, as a suggestion, you ought to be doing this if you're farming, right? You get an email. If you get the listing, you ought to create an auto email that lets you know what's happening in the neighborhood. All right, I had a listing in Silver Creek, and the guy calls me up, and, I'm like, he says, hey, Mike, how's it going? Oh, great, John, how are you doing? And, and he says, so, tell me about it. And I'm like, and I said, what do you mean? And he said, well, there's a for sale sign right across the street from me. And I said, oh, yeah, I was going to call you, but I'm on the phone with my mother right now. So let me just, I'll call you right back. I got that for you, all right? So, right, Oh, yeah, this is, I told him, about the property. And then, I was new at the time, right? A few months later, he calls me up and he says, all right, so what happened? I said, what do you mean? He said, well, the sign's gone. So after that experience, I decided that I would create an auto email letting me know of everything that happened in the neighborhood. And by the way, I also would include my client, right? So that they shouldn't be calling you. Or isn't that right? You should be calling them. But you might forget. I had a lot of listings, right? You understand at the time I had more than 10 active listings. I wasn't, you have to automate it, right? So that it reminds you. All right, RPR. People always say, what's that? Right? I mean, agents that have been in the business a long time. What's that, right? RPR is over here. Remember, it's one of the buttons right under Real List. And it's called Realtor Property Resource. And I have to pick one, I guess. And if you've never done this, you need to go ahead and click in it. If you haven't done this, it's not going to let you just go in. It's going to ask you to register, right? Does it cost extra? The answer is no, you're already paying for it. You're already paying for it. And in order to register, you need to know your NRDS number, your NRDS number, which is I don't know if they told you this at the orientation for the board, not only are you required to memorize, you're supposed to have it tattooed someplace easily, well, maybe not. Nobody knows their NRDS number, right? Let me just say that. But they have a lookup, and if you can remember your BRE number and your name, you can find your NERDS number, and your NERDS number will allow you to log into RPR, which is the Realtor's Property Resource. NAR RPR has a YouTube channel. And by the way, one of the things I'm going to be doing in February and March in between Ignites is there's this quick program that we do, and one of the classes I'm going to do is going to be on how to use the Realtor Property Resource. You're probably wondering, well, why should we go? Because you're going to show us now. But what we're going to do, notice it says search 1.7 million active listings everywhere, pretty much in the United States. Everywhere. Have you ever had to do a CMA on a property that's not in our MLS? Go here, right? Because, you know, you could learn how to use MetroList, Rapatoni, or Paragon CMA. You think the one I just went through was tough, right? So what we're going to do is I'm just going to paste in that address, 5900 Allen, and I'm going to click on the search. And what it's going to do is it's going to pull up, first of all, RVM, their realtor valuation model is 866, right? Is that a different number than what we got from Realist, right? Now, this is simply based upon, when it says RVM versus AVM, AVM means that it's an automated valuation model, which means they don't have good MLS data. This RVM means that it's got good MLS data. Notice there's a thing here, a property analysis for investors. That's an entirely different class, but it would show you how to analyze like fourplexes and things like that from an investor's point of view, giving different scenarios. Now, if we want to, look at all these fun little things, a history. So this is a history of the property. Those icons show you, and we know it hasn't sold in a long time, but one of the things that sometimes you find is, see this little red line here, distressed actions? Sometimes you'll see a little red line, like fairly recently, and that means there's a notice of default on the property. Financing activity, listing activity, assessed value, market assessor's value, right? It shows, and then it has, look at all this stuff about neighborhoods, median, 12-month change, median price, all for 95123. Look at all that stuff, yes.
So you think this report is more accurate?
Yes. Whether or not it's more accurate is not really the question. It uses the same database. By the way, one of the conversations when you're talking about pricing is that, is the property going to have to appraise? What information does the appraiser look at? This is the phrase I used. The same facts of record that we're looking at now. Facts of record, right? So, and what happens if it doesn't appraise? They renegotiate. Buyer has to come up with the difference, or seller has to lower the price.
In this market?
Well, some of them have had price reductions. Right? Some of them have had price reductions. So, the same, do you like that phrase? Facts of record. Right? Right? Rather than, you see? I do accept tips if you're interested. So, now as we scroll down here, notice what it's showing us. So the last time it was in the MLS was 2000, well, that's public records. So what it's showing, if we click on MLS records, there isn't anything that really shows up because, anyhow, but if we click on public records, it shows us 2005 and 2002, what the records are, and look what it's telling us. Forget all that stuff from the property profile. Right? This is tells us a lot of information. In 2002, it has the names. It's in a trust. That could be important. Here's the tax information, mortgage records, no distressed information available.
One thing.
Yeah.
From a mortgage standpoint, when I'm looking up or checking on something I don't know the history of, the mortgage history could be very, very important. I'm not talking about distressed stuff, but you can immediately find out how maxed out somebody is, or if they've used their property like a piggy bank.
Right. Is when they discussed the pre-listing consultation and the sellers, that sheet that one of the questions you should ask people is, well, first of all, I would always say, could you describe your house? A lot of times what they describe is not what this looks like. Right? This says 3 bedrooms and they say 4. Right? Why would there be, they say 2,500 square feet and the public record says 18. What would account for that difference?
Unpermitted add-ons.
Unpermitted add-ons. Could it be that the county records are just wrong?
Yep.
Possible. Sometimes they are. Right? But oftentimes it's unpermitted add-ons. What do you think they want to see a CMA for? The 3-bedroom, 1,800 square foot house or the 4-bedroom, 2,500 square foot house? The 4-bedroom. Right? Should we? So I'm just saying. So charts and graphs. Ooh, charts and graphs. Click on this. Median estimated value. Look at all this stuff about the neighborhood, sales price. Look at charts and graphs. Listing inventory. Inventory of distressed properties. Median sales price by square foot. Looking at 2000. Looking at this house. And the comps, look at, they're already doing this. You're saying, how do we get this report? Patience. Refined value. So this is where, if it said 3-1 and it's a 4-2, we could make the changes. Right? If it said 1,800 square feet and it's now 20, we could change it. Lot size. Now this is really kind of cool. What is the value of a home improvement? Oh, it sort of depends. But if you click on this, now this is from a base. This is why you need to know if the other properties have remodeled kitchens, bathrooms, and things like that. Supposing the comp does not, and this one has a remodeled kitchen. This, by the way, comes from, it's with an H, Hanley, that's maybe not right. But if you were to Google search cost versus value report, you're going to find that there's a remodeling group that looks at, just because you spent $50,000 on a remodel does not mean that adds $50,000 to the price. So what you can do, because has there ever been anybody who said, oh, we just did a new kitchen remodel, right? So here's a major kitchen remodel mid-range. Notice when I pop that in, I could put in the date it was completed and let's say the costs.
What do they mean by mid-range?
Well, you'd have to, it gives you sort of an example here.
Oh.
It explains it.
Okay.
And if we click on add, what it's going to do is add what it thinks so I'm going to do it for 4. It's added for a $30,000 remodel. It added $19,355.
Where'd you go? There's homepage and then, what's that home?
I'm under refined value. So what it allows us to do is add a major remodel, minor remodel. We could add something and it would come up with an estimate. Is this is not perfect? Is it better than just taking their $50,000 and tacking it on, or you guessing what that's going to be? Was there a question, Mike?
Does the value of a home improvement change with the zip code of the area?
Yeah, it does. You'll notice if you go to cost versus value, if you Google search cost versus value report, you're going to see they break it down by area. We're not very big on basement remodels, right? But they actually, and they've added the San Jose metropolitan area. So this is sort of a generic, this isn't perfect, but I don't know what you were doing before. Look at this, refined based on local market conditions. Move the slider. So let's say, because we did the last 90 days, some of that is in November and December. Would we say the market is hotter or slower now? How about it's a little bit hotter? The home exterior relative to comparables. Same, maybe ours is a little bit better. Home interior, ours is way better. Lot size, ours is larger. View is, ours is work. Notice what's happening down here. See how it's making adjustments based upon our movement of the sliders. Now, the only problem with this is that you might be thinking, oh, good, it's going to give me the number to tell them, right? Which, remember, my theory is that you may not want to do it. But I'm just saying, so unless it matches, do you understand how if they said I wanted 890, I could end up with that number? Can you understand how by just tweaking the sliders a little bit, could come up with that number, right? I'm just saying it makes it a lot smoother if you and them are on the same page. Comp analysis, notice what I'm doing is I'm just going through every tab. We're going to confirm the facts. We're actually going to do a CMA. So what would allow us to do is to make our own changes. Now, agents ask me if I make these changes here and I hit confirm and save, does it change the county records? I've been asked that question like 100 times. No. No, they do not allow real estate agents to change county records. Just, right? So if you were thinking about, if you were about to raise your hand, no, they don't allow real estate agents to change. But could we, might have to make some changes because they've done stuff. We're not going to make, we're going to confirm facts. Find comps. Now, if you click on this, what it's doing is it's going to come up with, in the last 6 months, by the way, this is software, there's an appraisal module here. Some appraisers actually use this software too, but it gives us a range automatically built in. You could change it. You could change it. Notice your built is here. We're just going to click on search because I don't know, getting tired. And what it's doing is it's pulled up some comps. And then if you look at the very top, here's the market. This is the subject property. So we're looking at it, and it's a 4.2 on a large lot. Now we scroll down here. What we're looking is for something that looks similar. So here's one that's a little bit smaller. It's a 4.3, 1971. Where's 1985? So what we might do is go here, like this one, 1988, that's a little bit closer. 1968's a little bit older. 62, so there's not, here's an 84, 86, 88. You understand what I'm doing? Now what's happening, you see it's adding the comps that I picked over here. Notice what it's done is it's changing. Notice one of them puts it up at 1.194. That one is got, see, we're looking up here. This one's 328 a square foot. Let's find the one that throws that off. 448 a square foot. That, look, here's 467, 448, 467, 410. So it depends on what we think about the condition of this, but what I would generally do is unmark some of the ones that were seemed like if they'd overdone it, right? If they had over improved the property. But we're just going to go with this because update valuation and close. So it's saying the result based upon this, which I was doing quickly, is 1,057,000, and it gives a range, and it came up with an average of $413 per square foot. Right? Now that we've done that, you're probably thinking, well, how do I like bring my computer with me and show it to them? Get a report or reports. Does everybody see those two buttons? Either one is going to take you where we want to go. And they give you a whole bunch of reports to pick from. The seller's report is everything in the kitchen sink. It's like 70 some pages. All those graphs and charts and comparables and the sliders and everything is in that report. There's a property report, which is just a little bit smaller. Market activity report. Mini property report, neighborhood report, and the valuation workbook is what an appraiser would use. You can personalize it, including the recipient's name, type in a message. You could email it. You have to say, I have read and understand all these things. And it would take a little while I'll do a seller's report.
What would you recommend?
I usually would pull up the seller's report but not necessarily print the whole thing out. Because I took a lot of stuff. So it's in the queue right now. And eventually it'll make us sound like a old-fashioned doorbell. And then it would have run the report.
Is this report, you have to download it as a PDF? Or
Download it as a PDF. It saves it for 30 days, and then that's it.
you print it out of the PDF?
Right.
But you can save it, though.
You could email a copy to yourself or to them. All right, it creates a PDF that you could email. A really long PDF. This report takes a long time. Now, over here, it has all these different elements and things like that. You could add a logo. There's a sample. If you want to click on samples rather than making one, you could click on samples. Why don't we just that's the property report. Why don't we go here to seller's report and a sample. So what it's going to do is this is going to show you all the different everything.
Has the RPR always been part of MLS?
No, but it's been part of the MLS for more than 10 years. I was teaching RPR classes more than a decade ago. And the most common response I get from experienced agents is, when did they add that? Right? You understand that real estate agents sometimes get in a rut, right? You learn how to do something and something new comes up and you don't bother, right? You just don't bother. So that's enough. Eventually it's going to produce this complete report. And this one looks the nicest, right? This is a fancy looking, nice looking report. The other one, the one that I did, the long CMA and the quick CMA, every idiot agent has learned how to do the quick CMA. Not all agents have learned to do the long CMA, but there's a chance that if there's a chance, so let's see how many pages this is. This is always
So you're
different.
saying that this one is better than the CMA?
Right.
Okay.
See, and I only did the property report. So this shows you what it looks like. It starts with a map. Your picture will look better, but I don't necessarily show them this page, but you could do it. Property report, and you can see it goes through home facts. We haven't made any changes or refinements, and it shows, right? Shows all that you did. Again, I think it really comes down to showing them specific comps. And so there's going to be, you'll see that there's a lot of this. They don't number the pages, so you can just print out the ones you like. This is a heat map, right? It's got every whistle and bell. Every whistle and bell, right, is in this report. All right, and by the way, I didn't do the long report. This is the short report. The long report has pictures and it has pages for every comp. That's the seller report. This is just a property report. This is the short report. All right, so was that difficult? I didn't change any of the criteria, but you could spend a little time. You have to pick the comps. That's RPR. Now, what's the last thing I want to do? The bottom of the seller's report, by the way, has an estimated net sheet, which,
Is it editable?
well, the MLS has an editable net sheet. The title companies have apps that you can put on your computer. Well, the app doesn't, on your tablet or cell phone, and they all have websites where you can log in and put in the numbers. In the old days, we used to carry rate books with us because the two numbers that were difficult to come up with out of just knowing was the escrow and the title fees. right? But there's an app for that now. There's the websites of the title companies have a place where you can log in and do one. Plus, they'll do them for you if you ask them nicely. And my belief is that if you want to become good at selling real estate, you ought to learn how to do one. Right? You ought to learn how to do one. Because isn't what the seller really wants to know is what is my net going to be if I sell my property at this price? By the way, when an offer comes in, should you do a net sheet? Right? Right, because do you want them calling you at the, or you're at the sign off? Do you want them reaching across the table to strangle you? Right? Because the number that they're hearing now is very different from the number you told them. Does every, all right? So the software, by the way, the California Association of Realtors Zip Forms has a form for it too, which is completely edible. The value of using the title company forms is that they already know the title fees and escrow fees. Right, but how much is the county transfer tax? Don't everybody blurt it out at once. $1.10 per thousand. What is the county transfer tax? City. What is the city?
55 cents.
That's the $1.10 per thousand. It comes out to be, wow, $265, but it's split 50-50, so it's right. So if you were to go, and I'm not CHICAGO title transfer tax. Chicago Title Transfer Tax is a website. And we go down and find, have you ever had anybody ask you what it's going to be like in Endeavor County? So we go down here to Santa Clara County. So it's $1.65 if it's split 50-50. So it's $3.30. $1.10 per thousand is the county transfer tax, the city transfer tax. So is there a city transfer tax in Campbell? No. But there is in San Jose, Palo Alto, and Mountain View. And you don't really need to worry about that. Escrow fees, it tells you what's typical in that particular county. Chicago Title Transfer Tax. Just throwing out a plug. I'm sure that the other title companies have a site like this too. I just don't know it. Right? So you might want to learn how to do it. Then maybe I'll go back to the outline. Where will they go to find out the value of their property? Zillow. So do we want them to go to Zillow? Are they going to go anyhow?
Yes.
All right.
Truly, Redfin.
Zillow. I would run Zillow and print it out and take it with me. We can pretend that they're not going to look at Zillow. We can pretend. Right? But do we want Darren, Kristen, and David to get their hands on them? See those guys on the side? Right? Do we want them to talk to Kristen, Darren, or David? No. So might we just go ahead and run it and look at it?
Pretty close estimate.
Right? Sometimes they are, sometimes they're not.
How does Zillow compare to Trulia then?
Well, they're all very close. You could run Trulia and Zillow. You could run them all if you wanted to. You know, they're merging.
Are they really?
Yeah, and they haven't decided yet, but the new name is either going to be Zulia or Trillo. I'm making this up.
No, it's bad. It makes sense, Mike.
Trillo. So you might want to look at that.
But sometimes the pricing is
Yeah, so why not run them both?
So is one better than the other, I guess is my question.
This is my explanation of how they work. Right? This is my explanation. So let's say you have a friend and it's their birthday, and you decide to buy them a pair of jeans for their birthday, but you don't know their size. So you ask 5 of their friends what size jeans they wear and average it. Right? And now, might they fit? They might fit. They might not. Now, Zulia and Trillo are asking different friends what size they wear. By the way, what I used to have on my website was a Zillow API. And I don't know, who's geeky enough to know what an API is? This is not Academic Performance Index. Huh? That's good. So I can make up stuff. So, and it allowed people to run a Zestimate on my website. And people would say, well, why are you doing that? Because they're going to go there anyhow. All right, they're going to go there anyhow. And by the way, one of the things that you can do if you want to disprove, right, Zillow, is you go to Matrix. That's going to make me log in again. And what you would do is in the area or in the zip code, run properties that closed yesterday. I mean, today's Monday, so you can't do yesterday, but things that, they closed on Friday. It's better to do it Tuesday for Monday or Wednesday for Tuesday. Things that closed yesterday. Now, what you're going to find is that Zillow hasn't updated their information yet. So you take that address. Do we know what it actually sold for if it closed yesterday? Yes, it's in the MLS. Take the address, put it in Zillow. See what Zillow says it's worth, right? You'll find sometimes $150,000 swings, high and low, from what Zillow says it's worth and what it actually closed for. Right? Does everybody understand what I'm saying?
So where are you putting that on your website?
Well, Zillow took away the API thing anymore because they didn't want you, they wanted you to go to Zillow. So what you would do is just run a sold that had a close date. Now, again, they might have updated since Friday, right? You understand? But they haven't. I'll just see what happens, because agents don't, necessarily one match. So somebody said it closed yesterday, and so what you would do is you would take this property. Now I understand this is Millbrae. We would do better on a Wednesday. You don't actually have to have one for just some examples. And when you go to Zillow and you put this in and hit enter, we'll see how good they are. It's going to tell us. You already did it. What does it say? 1.33169. They might have updated.
200,000 off.
They're 200,000 off? Okay.
I think that's
So what did it close for? 1,225 was the list price. Sales price sold 1,378 is what it closed for.
over 200,000.
And Zillow says its the estimate is 1,033,000. They were over $200,000 off. 300,000 off. So do you understand what I did? It takes them a day or two to update their records. So look at things that closed yesterday. Print out the Zestimate, right? Find a few that are just crazy in that area, just crazy, right? And print them out, and print out what it really sold for, and say, well, Zillow was $200,000 high on this one. They were $100,000 low on this one. Right? That's the best answer, but I would print out Zillow's estimate and take it with me. All right. What else? Since if you guys don't mind, let me just finish the rest of what I would do using the MLS. Is that okay with you guys? I know that some of you are seasoned agents, so you already understand all the intricacies of the multiple listing service and how it works, right?
No.
No?
No.
All right. The other things, now the RPR has some cool stuff, and because they have all those reports and things like that. Old school, by the way, those of you are saying, where would I, he said that there is a net sheet. See where it says financial? You already see that? Seller's net, buyer's net. Use the title company website or the title company app. By the way, will the title company make 4 or 5 net sheets for you?
Yeah, sure.
For different prices?
Yes.
Right, so you can take them with you, right? You understand, if you say to the seller, your home's going to sell for this amount, here's the amount you're going to net, what do you think? Right, you're gambling, right? You're gambling. Is it better to establish the price range they're interested in and then say this is what you're going to net, right? Or you can argue with them. Go debate sellers about pricing. Go ahead. Right? You understand, somebody like me might show up and say, oh yes, I can understand why Roland would say that's the price you ought to list it for. He doesn't really like to work very hard. Right? He wants an easy sale. I work hard for my clients. I get them the best price possible. Most agents, they don't want to work hard. They don't want to actually market the property, right? So they're going to underprice it so it's easy for them. Gee, I can't imagine why they would say that. Our office has sold several homes not nearly as nice as yours for a lot more than what he said. Well, all right, you understand? So that's financial. The other 2 places I want to point out to you is market reports and stats. Market reports, now this has been around a while. Sold price analysis, area summary report, residential summary report, and market summary. What I would recommend that you do is you take a peek at this just for fun. Now what I'm going to do is click on residential summary report, and notice this familiar thing is going to come up. I'm interested in all of these. I'm interested in residential, single family, and I'm going to do 95123, and I'm going to put in 0 minus 30. Now some of this looks a lot like what we're doing in the quick CMA. The quick CMA, however, came up with a price, a range and things like that. So this is another report: list price, sold price, high, low, average, median, days on market, and it produces a list of everything in the last 30 days in 95123 that sold, right? And it shows everything, right? And withdrawn, sold, canceled, contingent, and again it has the address and the MLS number, bedrooms, bath. It summarizes them, has the price per square foot. So there's a bunch of these different reports, and I'm not going to run them all, but you might want to be curious about what's available in the MLS and run them. The other thing that I would call to your attention is stats, which is up here in the upper right hand corner. Now there's a whole bunch of these that are presets, although you can customize. If you're not good at this, what I would do is just use the preset. We're going to do is put in 95123. We also could do a map, but it's hard to do statistics on a map because there's not enough sales to really do any statistics. Single family homes, and I have the zip code, and what it wants is, how about this one? Average days on market, sale to list price ratio, hit generate. And what it's going to do is spin around. And spin and spin and spin. There we go. And it makes this chart. And if you click on data, it'll show you what the data is saying. What the data is saying in 95123, in 95123 in December 2014, it took an average of 32 days for a home to sell. and they got 1.5% more on average than the list price. Right? That's the truth. And if you want, you could export as a CSV file, which means it would be opened in an Excel program if you wanted to do that. You also could make a chart. The charts, I don't know, have the numbers on them and things like that. It sometimes is easier to look at the data to see what it means. If you wanted to use the chart, let's say in a Word document or something, if you right-click, and you could go to Save Image As or Copy Image, and we just go down here and we paste it in, and it's going to just not let me do it. Ah, thank you. All right, so thank you very much, MLS. So let me try this. Let me try this again. Where am I? One of these is the MLS. Right here. Copy image. Oh, well, thank you.
Do you need to highlight that area you want to copy?
No, it should have worked because you do it right in the middle. So we're going to go to Save Image As, and it gives us that, and we're going to say 95123 test 1. It's a PNG file. Now if we want to put this into something, we go to Insert Pictures, and we go here, and there's our chart. And if what I used to do, but these charts have been around a while, is I would then go get that data from the Excel spreadsheet and paste it in underneath. That actually had the numbers. Some engineers really like this. Really like this. So would that jazz up our CMA?
Yes.
Graphs and charts, data, lists of everything that's sold, binder, 3-ring binder, tabs filled with stuff. Now, a lot of this stuff can be prepared in advance. This doesn't take that long to do once you've practiced it, right? You understand? This really doesn't take that long to do. You don't have to do all of them, but pick out some of the graphs and charts. Okay. Days to sell, months of inventory, number of homes for sale versus sold. I would become curious about this and just start clicking on different graphs and charts and looking at them. If you're farming an area, should you already have this information?
Yes.
Yeah. So the red shows actives and sales number of, and there's an issue because of the end of the year is different. In January, now this is January 2014, notice how the number of actives shot up compared to the number of sales. So although it went down in December and November because fewer people put their homes on the market, so the number of sales were higher than the number of actives, but look what happens to the trend at the beginning of the year. All right? So more people are putting their homes on the market. How are we doing with this? Have I lost? All right. One of the other things that I would suggest that you do, I talk about this in the coaching system, whether you like the idea or not, you ought to have a blog, especially if you're working in an area. Even if nobody ever reads it, what you ought to do is to look at what's going on in the market, graphs and charts, and every week, every month, write something and paste it in the blog, right? Even if nobody reads the blog, right? Even if your mother won't read your blog, right? You understand? Nobody cares about it because now you've collected all this data. I have some blogs that I have that are not published. In other words, you can't see them. They're not designed for anyone to see. But there's ways of clipping articles and other things and putting and sending them to the blog, and the blog allows you to categorize things so that when it comes time, if I had a listing appointment and I had my Blossom Valley, everything that's going on, all those graphs and stuff are already sitting right there, right? And I can just print them out, put them in the binder, and be ready to go. What you ought to do every day, 5 days a week or every week, you ought to look at, let's say you're looking at an area. And I'm going to put in 95123 just because I'm beating that one to death. 95123, but you could do Santa Clara County. What we're going to do is click on active listings, single family, and you could, I would do condos and townhomes differently. Back in the old day, this was called, there's a report you'd run called the count report, and it would give you just a count. Notice it says there's 24 active listings, 95123 right now. If I wrote that down and then looked at contingent and pending, there's 25. So 24 versus 25. Now, the reason why those numbers are useful is because there's about half of all the listings right now are pending in 95123. So if there are 50 homes on the market in if there are 54 sale signs in 95123, 25 of them, roughly half of them, are under contract. The other half are not. Now, if you looked at that every day, what you're going to see is movement in those different ratios, right? And if you were the expert on 95123, would you maybe every day, at least once a week, check in and look at those numbers? Are the active listings going up or are they going down? Do you understand that the ratio between actives and pendings gives you sort of a pulse of the health of that market at any given moment? By the way, in Santa Clara County, just to give you a for instance, because real estate, like politics, is all local. I know. It's hard to stand, talk, and think, as you've noticed. There are 634 active listings in Santa Clara County and 720 pendings. So overall, in Santa Clara County, the ratio, there's more pendings than there are in 95123. And what you're gonna, and of course, Santa Clara County includes Palo Alto and Mountain View and some other areas where it's really crazy, right? Do you understand what I'm suggesting is that you know your numbers, right? If you're going to tell people that you're a Blossom Valley expert,
You better be one.
you ought to be one, right? Because most real estate agents don't do any research until somebody says, come over and talk to me. They don't preview homes until they have a buyer who wants to buy one. Right? Isn't that true? Right? Because why waste my time? The homes I look at today aren't going to be on the market in 2 weeks. Isn't that right? So why go look at them? Right? It just gives you market knowledge so that when you do have a buyer, you can talk to them. I saw that one right over there just sold recently, right? Was that enough for this, for that? All right. So if I let you out